The vast emptiness of space was suddenly broken by a sleek, silver spaceship. It zoomed through the stars, its engines humming with power. Inside, a crew of 5 aliens from the planet Xyrox went about their daily tasks. They were on a routine survey mission, mapping new parts of the galaxy. Captain Zorn, a tall, thin creature with blue skin and large, dark eyes, sat in the command chair. He looked at the main screen, watching as they approached a small blue planet. "What's that?" he asked, pointing at the screen. His science officer, Vex, peered at the readings. "It appears to be a planet covered mostly in liquid." The crew looked at each other in confusion. On their home world of Xyrox, water was very rare. They had never seen so much of it in one place before. Suddenly, alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed all around the ship. The whole vessel shook violently. "What's happening?" Captain Zorn shouted. The pilot, Crix, frantically pushed buttons on his control panel. "We're losing power. The engines are failing." Panic spread through the crew. Their ship was heading straight for the blue planet, and they couldn't stop it. "Brace for impact," Captain Zorn yelled. The ship entered the planet's atmosphere, flames licking at its sides. It fell faster and faster, like a shooting star. The aliens held onto their seats, their hearts racing with fear. With a massive splash, the ship crashed into the ocean. Water sprayed high into the air, then came crashing down on the ship's hull. The impact shook the aliens in their seats. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then Captain Zorn opened his eyes and looked around. "Is everyone okay?" he asked. The crew nodded, still shaken, but their relief was short-lived. A new sound filled the air, a gurgling, rushing noise. "What's that sound?" asked Lyra, the communications officer. Vex checked the ship's sensors. His eyes widened in horror. It's the liquid from outside. It's coming into the ship." The aliens stared at each other in shock. On their desert homeworld, they rarely saw more than a small puddle of water. The idea of being surrounded by it was terrifying. Captain Zorn tried to stay calm. "Crix, can you get the engines working?" Crix shook his head. "No, Captain. The crash damaged them badly." "Lyra, can you send a distress signal?" Lyra tapped at her console, then looked up with worry. "Our communications are down, Captain. We can't call for help." The situation was getting worse by the second. Water was now ankle-deep in the control room, and rising fast. The aliens, not used to so much water, began to panic. They climbed onto their chairs, trying to stay dry. Their bodies weren't made for swimming, and they had no idea how deep the water outside was. "What do we do?" cried Mox, the ship's engineer. "We can't go outside. We'll drown." Captain Zorn tried to think. They needed help, but how could they get it? They were trapped in a sinking ship on a strange, water-covered world. Just then, Vex noticed something on the few working sensors. "Captain, I'm detecting movement in the water near us." The aliens crowded around the screen. Through the murky water, they could see a large shape moving towards them. It looked like some kind of vessel, but very different from their own. Is it alive?" Lyra asked, her voice shaking. Before anyone could answer, they heard a loud thump on the side of their ship. Something was out there, and it was trying to get in. The aliens huddled together, shivering with fear. Water continued to rise around them, now reaching their waists as they stood on their chairs. The thumping on the ship's hull grew louder. Suddenly, there was a hiss of air. A hatch on the side of the ship slowly began to open. The aliens held their breath, not knowing what to expect. Water rushed in as the hatch opened fully. But then, something else entered. A creature they had never seen before. It was wearing some kind of suit and carrying strange equipment. It looked around, then turned and made gestures towards the open hatch. More of these creatures entered the ship. They moved easily through the water, as if it was their natural environment. The aliens of Xyrox couldn't believe their eyes. What were these beings? Were they here to help or to harm? As one of the strange creatures approached them, Captain Zorn and his crew pressed themselves against the wall. They were trapped between the rising water and these unknown beings. The creature reached out a hand towards them. The aliens of Xyrox looked at each other, unsure what to do. They were about to meet their first Earthlings, and they had no idea what would happen next. The aliens from Xyrox stared at the strange creatures entering their ship. These beings moved through the water with ease, wearing suits that let them breathe underwater. The aliens had never seen anything like it before. One of the underwater creatures approached Captain Zorn. It made strange noises and pointed at the rising water. The captain and his crew pressed themselves against the wall, unsure what to do. Suddenly, the creature removed its face cover. The aliens gasped. Under the suit was a being that looked a bit like them, but with different colors and features. It had 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth, just like they did. The being spoke, but the aliens couldn't understand the words. It pointed to itself and said, "Human." Then it pointed at the aliens and waited. Captain Zorn realized it wanted to know who they were. He pointed to himself and said, "Xyroxian." The human nodded and smiled. It held out a hand to Captain Zorn. The captain looked at his crew, unsure what to do. Finally, he reached out and took the human's hand. The human gently pulled, trying to lead the captain towards the open hatch. But Captain Zorn resisted. He pointed at the water and shook his head. "No," he said in his own language. "Dangerous." The human looked confused. It pointed at the rising water inside the ship, then at the open hatch. It was clear the human wanted them to leave the sinking ship. Vex, the science officer, spoke up. "Captain, I think they're trying to rescue us." Captain Zorn nodded slowly. "But how can we survive in all that water?" Just then, more humans entered the ship. They were carrying large, clear bubbles. The first human pointed at the bubbles, then at the aliens. It put its hands together in a circle, then moved them apart, mimicking the bubble expanding. Lyra, the communications officer, understood first. "I think they want to put those bubbles around our heads. Maybe it will let us breathe in the water." The humans approached each alien with a bubble. The Xyroxians were scared, but they knew they had no choice. The water was now up to their chests as they stood on their chairs. Carefully, the humans placed a bubble around each alien's head. There was a soft hiss, and suddenly the aliens could breathe easily. The bubbles were filled with air. The first human pointed at the open hatch again. This time, Captain Zorn nodded. He took a deep breath and stepped into the water. To his surprise, he didn't sink. The human held onto him, keeping him afloat. One by one, the other aliens followed. Soon, all 5 Xyroxians were in the water, surrounded by the human divers. The humans guided them out of the ship and into the open ocean. The aliens looked around in wonder. They had never seen so much water in their lives. Strange creatures swam by, fish of all colors and sizes. Slowly, they all began to rise towards the surface. As they got closer, the aliens could see light above them. With a splash, they broke through into the air. The Xyroxians blinked in the bright sunlight. They were in the middle of a vast expanse of water, with no land in sight. Nearby, a large vessel floated on the water's surface. The humans guided them towards it. As they approached the vessel, the aliens saw more humans on board. These ones weren't wearing water suits. They reached down and helped pull the Xyroxians out of the water. Once on the deck, the aliens huddled together, dripping wet and shivering. The humans brought them blankets and wrapped them up warmly. Captain Zorn looked at his crew. They were safe, but they were also stranded on a strange, water-covered world. How would they survive? How would they get home? A human approached them, holding a small device. It spoke into the device, and to the aliens' surprise, words in their own language came out. "Welcome to Earth," the device said. "We're here to help you." The aliens looked at each other in amazement. These humans had technology that could translate languages. Maybe this world wasn't as primitive as they had thought. Captain Zorn stepped forward. Speaking into the device, he said, "Thank you for saving us. I am Captain Zorn of the planet Xyrox. We come in peace." The human smiled and nodded. It spoke again, and the device translated. "We're glad to meet you, Captain Zorn. You're safe now. We have many questions for you, and I'm sure you have many for us." As the sun began to set over the vast ocean, the ship started moving. The Xyroxians watched in awe as they traveled across the water surface. Their adventure on this strange, wet world was just beginning. They had no idea what surprises Earth and its inhabitants had in store for them. As the fishing boat carrying the Xyroxian aliens sped towards the shore, a flurry of activity was taking place on land. The fishermen had radioed ahead, reporting their unusual encounter with the crashed spaceship and its occupants. Their message was met with disbelief at first, but the urgency in their voices convinced the authorities to take action. The Coast Guard was the first to respond. They sent out several fast boats to meet the fishing vessel. As they approached, they saw the 5 strange blue creatures huddled on the deck, wrapped in blankets and looking very confused. Captain Sarah Chen of the Coast Guard couldn't believe her eyes. "In all my years at sea, I've never seen anything like this," she said to her crew. They pulled up alongside the fishing boat and carefully helped the aliens transfer to their larger, more comfortable vessel. Meanwhile, on shore, a special team was being assembled. Scientists, doctors, and language experts were rushed to a secure facility near the coast. The military set up a perimeter to keep curious onlookers and the press at bay. Everyone was eager to see the alien visitors, but the government wanted to make sure the situation was under control first. As the Coast Guard ship neared the shore, a new problem arose. The aliens, who had been calm since their rescue, began to panic again. They pointed at the approaching land and made distressed noises. Using the translation device, Captain Zorn explained their fear. "Our world has very little solid ground," he said. "We live mostly on floating cities. We are afraid your land will sink under our weight." The humans were surprised by this. They had to explain that Earth's land was solid and wouldn't sink. To demonstrate, they showed videos of people walking on beaches and in forests. The aliens watched in amazement. When they finally reached the dock, a team of doctors was waiting. They had set up a special quarantine area to check the aliens for any illnesses that might be dangerous to humans, and to make sure Earth's bacteria wouldn't harm the Xyroxians. Dr. Emily Wong, the lead physician, approached the aliens with a friendly smile. "We need to do some quick health checks," she said through the translator. "It won't hurt, I promise." The aliens looked at Captain Zorn, who nodded bravely. One by one, they went through the health screenings. The doctors were fascinated by their unusual biology. The Xyroxians had 3 hearts, blue blood, and skin that could change color slightly based on their emotions. While the health checks were happening, a team of engineers was trying to figure out how to rescue the alien spaceship. It had sunk deeper into the ocean, but its location was marked by a buoy. Commander Jack Thompson of the Navy explained the situation to Captain Zorn. "We have special ships that can lift heavy things from the ocean floor," he said. "We're going to try to bring your ship up." Captain Zorn was amazed. "You can do that, but there's so much water." Commander Thompson smiled. "We've had a lot of practice. Humans have been sailing the seas for thousands of years. We've learned how to work with the water, not against it." The aliens watched in awe as a large ship with a huge crane sailed out to where their spaceship had crashed. Divers went down to attach strong cables to the sunken craft. Then, slowly but surely, the crane began to lift. Hours passed. The aliens and a crowd of humans watched from the shore. Finally, with a great splash, the alien spacecraft broke the surface of the water. Cheers erupted from the crowd. The Xyroxians couldn't believe it. Their ship, which they thought was lost forever, was being towed back to land. They chattered excitedly among themselves. As the spaceship was brought to a secure dry dock, Captain Zorn turned to Dr. Wong. "We are in your debt," he said. You have saved not only our lives, but our only way home. How can we ever thank you?" Dr. Wong smiled warmly. "There's no need for thanks," she said. "We're just happy we could help. And to be honest, we're excited to learn more about you and your world." As the sun set on this extraordinary day, both humans and aliens realized that this was just the beginning of an amazing adventure. Two worlds, so different yet with so much to share, had come together. What would tomorrow bring? Only time would tell. The next morning, the Xyroxian aliens woke up in a strange place. They were in a large room with soft beds, very different from the sleep pods on their ship. At first, they were confused, but then they remembered everything that had happened the day before. Captain Zorn looked out the window and gasped. He could see a vast expanse of water stretching as far as the eye could see. "Crew, come look at this," he called out. The other aliens joined him at the window. They were amazed by the sight of the ocean. On their home planet, they had never seen so much water in one place. There was a knock at the door. Dr. Emily Wong entered, smiling warmly. "Good morning," she said through the translator. "I hope you slept well. Are you ready for breakfast?" The aliens looked at each other, unsure. They had brought some of their own food from the ship, but they were curious about Earth food. "We would like to try your food," Captain Zorn said politely. Dr. Wong led them to a dining room where a buffet was set up. There were all kinds of Earth foods, fruits, cereals, eggs, and more. The aliens sniffed at everything curiously before trying small bites. Vex, the science officer, took a bite of a strawberry and his eyes widened in surprise. "This is delicious," he exclaimed. The other aliens quickly tried it too, and soon they were happily eating various Earth foods. After breakfast, it was time for the cultural exchange to begin. The humans had many questions for the aliens, and the aliens were just as curious about Earth. Dr. Wong introduced them to Professor Mark Johnson, an expert in extraterrestrial studies. "We're very interested in learning about your world," he said. "Could you tell us about Xyrox?" Captain Zorn nodded and began to explain. "Xyrox is mostly desert," he said. "We have very little water. Most of it is underground. We live in big domes that protect us from the harsh sun and sandstorms." The humans listened in fascination as the aliens described their world. They talked about their floating cities, powered by the strong winds that blew across the deserts. They explained how they collected water from deep underground and how precious every drop was. "That's why we were so scared when we crashed into your ocean," Lyra, the communications officer, added. "We've never seen so much water before. It's beautiful, but terrifying to us." Professor Johnson nodded in understanding. "Water covers about 71% of Earth's surface," he explained. "We call Earth the blue planet because of all our oceans." The aliens were amazed. They had so many questions about how humans lived with so much water around them. Next, it was the humans' turn to share. They showed the aliens pictures and videos of Earth's different environments, not just oceans, but also forests, mountains, and cities. The Xyroxians were particularly fascinated by the variety of animals on Earth. They watched videos of fish swimming in the ocean, birds flying in the sky, and animals running on land. "You have creatures that live in the water?" Mox, the engineer, asked in disbelief. The humans explained about fish, whales, and other sea creatures. As the day went on, both groups learned more and more about each other. The humans were impressed by the Xyroxians' advanced space travel technology. The aliens were amazed by Earth's biodiversity and the humans' ability to adapt to so many different environments. But there was one thing that really stood out to the aliens. They noticed how comfortable the humans were around water. They saw pictures of humans swimming, surfing, and diving deep into the ocean. You go into the water on purpose?" Captain Zorn asked, his voice filled with a mix of fear and awe. Dr. Wong smiled. "Yes, many humans enjoy water activities. Swimming is both fun and good exercise. Would you like to learn?" The aliens looked at each other nervously. The idea of voluntarily going into water was shocking to them. but they were also curious. After all, these humans seemed to enjoy it so much. After a moment of hesitation, Captain Zorn spoke up. We would like to try," he said bravely. "But we're very scared. Please be patient with us." The humans nodded understandingly. "Of course," Dr. Wong said. "We'll take it slow. We'll start in a small, shallow pool where you can always touch the bottom. And we'll be right there with you the whole time." As they prepared for their first swimming lesson, the Xyroxians felt a mix of fear and excitement. They were about to do something they never thought possible. Little did they know, this was just the beginning of their amazing adventure on Earth. The day of the Xyroxians' first swimming lesson arrived. The aliens were nervous but excited. They stood at the edge of a small indoor pool, looking at the clear blue water with a mix of fear and curiosity. Dr. Wong and a swimming instructor named Tom were there to help them. "Don't worry," Tom said with a kind smile. "This pool is very shallow. You can stand up in it easily." Captain Zorn took a deep breath and stepped into the water. He was surprised to find it was warm and not as scary as he thought. The other aliens followed, holding onto the edge of the pool. "That's great," Tom encouraged them. "Now, let's try floating." It took some time, but eventually the aliens learned to float on their backs. They were amazed at how the water held them up. Vex, the science officer, was fascinated by the physics of it all. As the lesson went on, the aliens became more comfortable in the water. They even started to enjoy themselves. By the end of the lesson, they were splashing around and laughing. "You did very well," Dr. Wong said as they got out of the pool. "How do you feel?" "It was fun," Captain Zorn admitted, sounding surprised. "I never thought I'd say that about being in water." The other aliens agreed. They were proud of themselves for facing their fear. Later that day, the Xyroxians had a meeting with some human scientists. The humans wanted to learn more about the aliens' technology, especially their spaceship. As they talked, Captain Zorn noticed something strange. The humans seemed very impressed by simple things, like how the Xyroxians could travel through space. "But surely you have spaceships too?" Captain Zorn asked, confused. The humans explained that while they had sent people to their moon and robots to other planets, they couldn't travel to other stars yet. This surprised the Xyroxians. They had assumed that a species that was so comfortable with vast oceans would be advanced in all ways. As they talked more, a misunderstanding began to grow in the aliens' minds. They started to think that humans must be incredibly brave and powerful to live on a planet with so much water. "You live surrounded by oceans, and you even go in them for fun," Lyra said in awe. "On our world, we avoid water as much as possible." The humans tried to explain that it was just normal for them, but the aliens didn't quite understand. In their minds, dealing with water was the scariest thing they could imagine. That evening, the Xyroxians had a private meeting in their room. "I think we've underestimated these humans," Captain Zorn said. "They live on a planet that's mostly covered in water, and they're not afraid at all." Vex nodded. "And did you see how easily they lifted our ship out of the ocean? They must be very powerful." "Maybe that's why they're not advanced in space travel," Mox suggested. "They haven't needed to leave their planet because they've already conquered their greatest fear." The others agreed. In their minds, Earth was starting to look like a planet of superheroes. What the Xyroxians didn't realize was that humans found many things scary too. They didn't know about human fears like heights, darkness, or public speaking. They didn't understand that being comfortable with water was just a normal part of life on Earth, not a sign of special powers. As news of the aliens' visit spread, reporters from around the world wanted to talk to them. In interviews, the Xyroxians kept talking about how amazed they were by humans' bravery around water. These stories started to spread across the internet. People began to see themselves differently. If aliens thought dealing with water was so impressive, maybe humans were braver than they realized. Meanwhile, in deep space, other alien species picked up Earth's broadcasts. They heard the Xyroxians' stories about the incredibly brave water-dwelling humans. These other aliens, who had never visited Earth, started to form their own ideas about humans. They imagined a planet of super beings who had mastered their greatest fears. Little did the Xyroxians or humans know, but their simple misunderstanding was about to change Earth's place in the galaxy in a big way. In the weeks that followed, news about the Xyroxian aliens spread all over Earth. People everywhere were excited to learn about the visitors from another world. But something unexpected was happening too. Earth's reputation in the galaxy was changing. Other alien species had been watching Earth for a long time. They knew humans existed, but they thought Earth was just another planet with simple life. Now they were hearing strange stories from the Xyroxians about how brave and powerful humans were. One day, a huge spaceship appeared in Earth's sky. It was from the Galactic Council, a group of the most advanced alien species in the galaxy. They wanted to meet these amazing humans they had heard about. The world's leaders gathered to welcome the Galactic Council. Everyone was nervous. What would these advanced aliens think of Earth? To everyone's surprise, the aliens from the Galactic Council seemed impressed by humans. They had heard how humans lived on a planet covered in water and even swam in it for fun. To many alien species, this seemed incredibly brave. "We have come to learn from you," the leader of the Galactic Council said. "Your people must be very strong to live in such a dangerous environment." The human leaders were confused. They didn't think living on Earth was particularly dangerous, but they didn't want to seem rude, so they just smiled and nodded. The Xyroxians were there too. They felt proud that they had discovered such an impressive species. Captain Zorn stepped forward and said, "Humans are amazing. They rescued us from the terrible ocean and even taught us to float in water." The Galactic Council aliens looked at each other in awe. Teaching someone to survive in water seemed like a great feat to them. Over the next few days, the Galactic Council aliens toured Earth. They were amazed by everything they saw. Beaches full of people swimming and surfing, boats sailing on the sea, and underwater research stations all seemed incredibly brave to them. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans found these things normal. Humans tried to explain that not everything on Earth was about bravery, but the aliens didn't seem to listen. Soon, Earth was becoming famous in the galaxy. Alien tourists started arriving to see the brave water planet for themselves. They would stand on beaches, watching in amazement as humans played in the waves. Some brave aliens even tried to learn swimming, just like the Xyroxians had. It became a popular adventure activity for aliens visiting Earth. They would return to their home planets with exciting stories about floating in Earth's waters. All this attention was changing things for Earth. Other alien species wanted to trade with humans, offering advanced technology in exchange for learning about Earth's water mastery techniques. Human scientists were excited about all the new alien technology they were getting. They started making big advances in space travel and other areas. But not everything was perfect. Some aliens started to worry that humans might be too powerful. They feared that if humans ever decided to conquer other planets, no one could stop them. After all, anyone who could master living in water must be unstoppable. The human leaders realized they needed to be careful. They didn't want other aliens to be afraid of Earth. They started inviting aliens to visit Earth and see for themselves that humans were friendly. The Xyroxians, who had started all this by accident, were now ambassadors for Earth. They traveled to other planets, telling everyone about their adventures on the water planet and how kind humans had been to them. Captain Zorn often thought back to the day they had crashed into Earth's ocean. What had seemed like a terrible accident had turned into an amazing adventure. Thanks to their misunderstanding about water, Earth had become one of the most famous and respected planets in the galaxy. As he watched humans and aliens learning to swim together in the ocean, Captain Zorn smiled. Sometimes, he thought, a little misunderstanding can lead to wonderful things. And who knew what other adventures were waiting for humans and aliens in the big galaxy out there? 5 years had passed since the Xyroxians first crashed into Earth's ocean. In that time, the galaxy had changed a lot. Earth was now a popular place for aliens from all over the universe. Every day, spaceships would land, bringing curious aliens who wanted to see the famous water planet. They came to watch humans swim, sail boats, and even surf big waves. To the aliens, these were amazing and scary things. One sunny day, Captain Zorn stood on a beach, watching the busy scene. Humans were playing in the waves, and aliens were watching with big eyes. Some brave aliens were even trying to learn to swim. "I still can't believe how much has changed," Zorn said to Dr. Wong, who was standing next to him. Dr. Wong smiled. "It's been quite an adventure, hasn't it?" Just then, a group of young aliens ran up to them. They were students from a planet far away, on a school trip to Earth. "Captain Zorn," one of them said excitedly, "can you tell us again how the humans saved you from the terrible ocean?" Zorn laughed. He had told this story many times, but he always enjoyed it. As he began to speak, more aliens gathered around to listen. Meanwhile, on the other side of the beach, a different kind of lesson was happening. Mox, the Xyroxian engineer, was teaching a group of alien scientists about human boats. "And you see," Mox said, pointing to a sailboat, "humans use the wind to move across the water. Isn't it clever?" The alien scientists nodded, taking notes. They thought using wind to move on water was a brilliant idea. They didn't know that humans had been doing this for thousands of years. In space, things were changing too. Earth was now part of the Galactic Council. Humans worked with aliens to solve problems and make new discoveries. One big project was to help planets that didn't have much water. Humans taught other species how to find water underground and how to clean dirty water. This made humans even more popular in the galaxy. But it wasn't just humans teaching aliens. Aliens taught humans many things too. With alien technology, humans could now travel to faraway stars. They started to explore the galaxy, making new friends everywhere they went. Back on Earth, in a big city, Vex the science officer was giving a talk at a university. The room was full of humans and aliens, all listening closely. "And so," Vex said, "by working together, we've learned that bravery comes in many forms. Humans might think swimming is normal, but to us, it's amazing. And humans find our space travel impressive, even though it's ordinary for us." Everyone clapped when Vex finished speaking. This idea of learning from each other had become very popular. As the day turned to evening, a special event was happening at the beach. It was the 5-year anniversary of the Xyroxians' arrival on Earth. To celebrate, there was going to be a big swim in the ocean, with humans and aliens together. Captain Zorn looked nervous as he put on his swimming suit. Even after 5 years, he still found the ocean a bit scary, but he was excited too. "Ready?" Dr. Wong asked with a smile. Zorn nodded. "Ready." Together, they walked into the water. Around them, humans and aliens of all kinds were swimming and playing. Some aliens were still learning, wearing floating devices and holding on to their human teachers. Others were getting better, swimming short distances on their own. As Zorn floated on his back, looking up at the stars, he thought about how much had changed. A simple misunderstanding about water had brought the whole galaxy together. Humans had gained new friends and amazing technology. Aliens had learned to enjoy water and had found a new, beautiful planet to visit. Sure, there were still problems to solve and new things to learn. But Zorn knew that together, humans and aliens could face any challenge. As the sun set over the ocean, casting beautiful colors across the sky, Zorn smiled. The galaxy was a very different place now, all because of one unexpected splash, and he couldn't wait to see what adventures would come next.